Welcome, everyone. It's Friday the 13th. Yikes. Alan's already trolled me once, and he was right. Okay, this is the part where I welcome our panel. Welcome, panel.
Hi, host. Good to be here.
All right. He's my co-host. He helps coordinate the rest of the panel. So anyway,
Oh, is that what I'm supposed to do?
yeah, exactly. That's how it works.
I thought that was your job. My job here was just to make fun of you.
Well, you have two jobs, but you're good at both. So anyway, okay, so I've welcomed the panel. I'll be on the Virginia Talk Radio Network tomorrow morning, Saturday morning, every Saturday at in the 11 o'clock hour, right after CBS News. They're at, I listen on WIQOradio.com, but if you go to Virginia Talk Radio Network, then, and apparently I'm all the rage. They did a poll, and I was the most popular thing. So there's very little taste in Central Virginia. Just kidding. And we've discussed spam. Later in the program, we will discuss spam, which we've discussed many times in this program, but this is a different kind of spam. We will discuss spiced ham, which is all the stuff that they sweep off the slaughterhouse floor, put in a can with another ingredient. But it's actually a very interesting article, and I recommend you guys read it. It's in our list at the bottom. I think it's the last thing. So first, let's discuss this. I played with this a little bit, Alan, but I have a 2010 computer, so I don't know if it's not there yet, like a lot of their experiments, or if it's my computer. But now YouTube will support 360-degree videos, and I guess this is everyone's getting into virtual reality. Mark Zuckerberg's company Facebook purchased Oculus, and they're going to be doing that for, I think, over $2 billion. But they're going to, I guess, you can be in your virtual reality thing, or you can just look at it. And in the story we linked to here, you can go to an actual YouTube video, and there's a thing that looks like a compass at the top, and you can kind of scroll around. So what are your thoughts, Alan?
Well, I think the other big thing this is useful for is for Google's Cardboard, which is a smash hit out there. I think this is interesting. I think it's a gimmick, but I think it's an interesting gimmick nonetheless, and we'll see where it goes.
Porn is the obvious application.
Do you really think 360-degree porn is going to be that interesting?
I don't know. I'm just filling in for Pam. She was laughing. There's about a 10-second buffer, so she's laughing now. But anyway, so yeah, it's on my computer. It's a little kludgy, and it's kind of like when they did the thing where there was multi takes, and they did a concert where there were several camera angles of some concert, and this was a few weeks ago. They announced they did this in a test, and it was kind of kludgy. But I think it was kludgy on Craig's computer as well, and he's got a Mac Pro, not the R2D2 one, but an older one. But it's really souped up. So, but good for them. I agree, it's kind of gimmicky, but baby steps. Okay, so next up is this. I just found this is the Washington Post. They're great at headlines. Why some people are so terrified by the idea of a Google Truth Machine. So what this is referring to is Google, I guess, at some point, one of their guys said, I don't know if it was Cutts or somebody said that they were going to start factoring in the validity of a story.
Well, no,
or
not
go ahead.
exactly. What they've done is they've published a research paper that talks about how they can use factual information to help rank websites. So in addition to other factors that they're including, they'll now be able to use chunks of information that they already have that they've rated as true, and compare websites to whether they're releasing true information or false information. based on those facts.
So really, this isn't Google sitting around saying Michelle Bachman's full of crap. This is another part of the algorithm where they rank sites based on how many credible sites link to them. And if, for example, if I did a post and the Associated Press and the New York Times both linked to it, it might,
Well,
because they're considered more truthful.
It's not just that, Dan. It's actually saying that they have a collection of facts. So, for example, a fact would be that there are 50 states in the United States. And any website that tried to say otherwise would be ranked down because it was obviously peddling non-factual information.
So this would discount all pre-Hawaii news stories in the news archives.
Well,
I think the example that they put was like Barack Obama,
yeah.
born USA, right? Which it isn't an example that I would have used in the story because of the truthers. But
well, no, that's exactly the reason why they used it.
So if you have a Tea Party site that's still saying he's a Muslim in Kenya, what's he doing in the White House, that sort of thing, then they might an algorithm, not a bunch of Googlers sitting around a table making judgment calls, but an algorithm might say that because and they said it was like billions or trillions of facts, right? Like the official bird, Virginia cardinal, that sort of thing, that are just undisputed facts, and that and that's even this list is created by computers, right? I mean, it's not a person deciding.
That's actually unclear to me, and that was one of the things that hasn't been clear. But some of the impression I get is that although the list may have been initially generated with machine algorithms, they're reviewed by humans for factuality.
All of them. So, but you think, right? We're not sure.
That's my understanding. Yes.
Because the way this was first presented, initially I was a headline reader, right? Those people who just read the headline, don't read the article, then launch into vigorous debate about something. But when this was first, and then I read the article, but I didn't post about it, but my thought was the Michelle Bachmann thing, right? That a team is going to sit around, but it's not. It's the computers. I think it's very similar to how they rank sites based on if there's a large number of links to a story from sites that they deem as popular and credible, then that gives you search rank. And so this is another tool they can use, probably more so to link news stories, I guess, or blogs. I don't know.
Well, I think it's probably more for blogs and similar websites to evaluate to weed out the crank sites, basically.
Okay. So this program will basically disappear from Google. Just kidding. Okay.
We've gotten rid of most of our cranks.
All right. Just two of us left now tonight. Okay, so I just thought we should address this because I think a lot of people had the same impression that we agree that Michelle Bachmann was wrong about vaccinations, or probably anyone who would watch this program would agree on that. But then what if they disagree with something that I agree with, and so on. So it's not really like that, and it's kind of interesting. I recommend you read that article.
Yeah, it's pretty clear that it still tries to maintain the ability for people to hold opinions and express opinions without getting those opinions marked down. But when your opinion starts to contradict facts, then you start to lose credibility. It's basically a credibility engine.
Okay, cool. Which gives more relevant and accurate information to people searching on Google, which is their biggest cash cow. Okay, next is Google launches 2 stores. They launched this is like what took them so long, story of the night. They launched a virtual store selling, I guess, every gadget that either they produce or they license, and they launched a physical store in London, which is pretty cool looking.
Let's start with the first one. We got to remember they did this already. They did this, a year ago?
In the Play Store, they had physical stuff, right?
Right.
But it wasn't.
Play Store used to have a section for devices, and that's now been replaced by a standalone website.
Store.google.com is the URL. or
Yeah.
the Earl, as Chi would say.
So yeah, it's store.google.com, and it's got all of the stuff that used to be sold at play.google.com devices. Um, you know, but I think the most interesting thing is that in doing this, they also launched a brand new device.
Oh yes, and that is our next topic, I believe. The funniest comment I got: laptop manufacturers, will you please put out a laptop like this and put Windows on it? So you were one of the first people to get. You literally were one of the first people to get the Chrome Pixel, the first one,
Can we actually tell people what the story? The story is they've launched the new 2015 edition of the Pixel.
which is the highest end Chromebook out there.
Yes.
And the original one was 2 years ago at I/O.
Yes, 2 years ago at I/O.
So, what do you
And
think?
actually, they launched the Pixel before I/O 2 years ago, and it was some people bought it, but not many.
It was $1,200, right?
12.99. Yeah.
Okay, so it's probably still the most badass Chromebook out there 2 years on. So I guess
Yep.
they're releasing. They probably released it about this time in 2013, a little before I/O. So is how much more badass is the new one? Looking at the specs.
It's actually roughly the same level of badass. It's going through it. It's interesting. Most of it has been kept. Still a beautifully high resolution, high density display. They have fortunately replaced the power system on it, and it's now supporting the USB-C power system. Other than that, the other big thing that it has is that although you could get the first edition Pixel with an LTE support, this one doesn't seem to have that. It does, however, have options for more memory and more disk, and a faster CPU.
And it's $300 less.
And the base model is $300 less.
Has the original Pixel been for sale this whole time?
Yeah, although nobody buys it.
The original one was considered for developers. That's how it was billed, right?
Yeah, just for the record, here's my Pixel.
He's such a show off, and we hate him because he has one. Nate got two. He bought one, then they gave him one.
Yep.
So I think one found its way on eBay.
Now you'll notice I'm actually holding it instead of using it. I've been, for a long time I was using it as my my Hangout on Air machine.
What are you using now?
Currently, I'm using a MacBook Pro.
How do you compare the two for Hangouts, for using Google Docs, and things you could do with both machines?
They're roughly equivalent.
Okay, but the MacBook Pro is more money, right?
It's about the same price.
Really? So you're getting... Is it an operating system thing, or...
The MacBook Pro, it's an operating system. It's got, I don't remember how the memory compares. It's got a larger hard drive. It's also a more modern device.
So I wanted to ask you, actually, Richard, come here for a sec, please. We were having a debate in the car, and at his high school here in Warren County, and so I just wanted to ask you to tell us, because I said, I hope that one day the school, as some of the neighboring localities have done, gives every kid a Chromebook, because it's, all the things we've discussed about why so many schools are doing that, because the price point's great, the teachers have some control, that sort of thing. And you said you thought it was a terrible idea. So why do you think it's a terrible idea?
Well, personally, I think it's more of a responsibility issue. The kids are probably just going to either ruin it, or they're going to get lost, they're going to get damaged.
You don't have to talk all fancy.
Unfortunate events is what I was
Will
trying
ensue?
to say.
They'll end up on eBay, or...
Yeah, just something just bad happening, or something on purpose.
You don't see any value in kids having a laptop versus, I swear to God, Alan, he brings pencils to school, and one of the first things he asked was, did I have a pencil sharpener? And I'm like, you use pencils still? He said everyone in school uses pencils.
You don't use mechanical pencils?
Yeah, I use wooden pencils, mechanical pencils, pens, whatever I can use to write.
Makes
Because
sense to me.
he was down to his last semi-sharp pencil, and I didn't have a pencil sharpener, and it was this whole traumatic thing.
You didn't have a pencil sharpener, Dan?
No, I don't have a pencil
I
sharpener.
think it's because he's
I
really
only
broke.
sign, the only thing I ever sign is checks. That's the only time I actually write something, which is terrible. If you don't use it, you lose it, right? So you don't think that it makes any sense for kids to have to all be given some sort of similar laptop type thing? You don't think that that's...
I think it would be a cool idea if it wasn't for my generation and generations below mine to be so irresponsible with their technology, even with their own personal stuff.
You don't think it would be such a badass thing that they would covet it and treasure it and take care of it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Dan, were you ever a teenager?
Yeah, I was in
there's-
military school.
That doesn't count as being a teenager.
He
Tech-
said it, not me.
I was technically a teenager, although I shined my shoes and
Being the age and experiencing it is two completely different things.
well, I had a Timex Sinclair laptop, just so you know.
Well,
That wasn't a laptop, Dan.
It was a sort of thing it resembled a laptop.
Except you plugged it into a TV.
No, it had a little line of text.
It had a chiclet keyboard.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much for your input.
yeah.
Your valuable input. All right, so the kid and I will have to agree to disagree.
Dan, just because you're wrong again.
I know.
But here's the thing. I mean, he's got a point. But one of the things about Chromebooks and about a way a lot of the districts use Chromebooks isn't that you're giving it out and the kid carries it around all over the place. You know, they use it in school. They check one out when they need to check it out. Since it doesn't matter which one they check out, they're all identical. You get the next one off the rack. If there's a problem with one, fine, you take it out of circulation. There's incredibly little risk of them trying to sell it, because if they do try to sell it, it gets locked out because it's got centralized control and administration.
Are you catching this? So it could be something that's optionally, like some classes might have them. You could check them out from the library. But because what brought this up is they have a computer lab. He was discussing that one of his periods today, he was in the computer lab. I said, they have a computer lab. He said, yeah, they have several in the school. And those are probably pretty expensive Windows machines, I would guess. Probably very high quality that they bought, right, on 30 desktops. And these are, what are they typically buying, Alan? About a $300 Chromebook? The school districts, I'm guessing?
Yeah, they're getting about $300 Chromebook plus the management system to go along with it.
Okay. And is that usually a third party, or is that Google's Education's giving them that? And then they pay
It's all part of the system that you get from Google.
and the schools pay for it, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right, and they're popular. So I think a lot of schools are implementing them one grade at a time. Or that's interesting what you suggested, that it be certain classes might have it and you could check it out. Certain kids. Okay, cool. So Michael Ellis has joined us. Welcome, Michael. Good to have you.
Thank
And
you. Good to be here.
So next up is Google Fiber has ended 2014 with just under 30,000 subscribers, and the adoption rate is not fantastic. And I think that what an analyst said was, this shows how difficult it is to build on top of an existing legacy, incumbent provider. But it's nothing to sneeze at either. The adoption rate's pretty good. It's in the teens, I think, in Kansas.
Well, there's some interesting numbers here. These numbers that they're citing right now are just video subscribers. So these are people that have subscribed to Google's video package. There are no numbers, at least these numbers, and where these numbers come from is they're numbers that are reported to the U.S. Copyright Office, who's in charge of the mandatory licensing. What they don't report are those customers that just went with the free data only, or the 1 gigabit data only. And there are some estimates saying that the uptake on those is a lot higher.
I didn't realize that. I missed that. So, and I guess they can subscribe just to TV.
Well, you subscribe to TV, you get the data package as well. So you can't just subscribe to TV,
But you can just subscribe to data.
but you can just subscribe to data. Correct.
And some are getting it free, right? If they pay the $250.
Correct.
Okay. Or free for 2 years or whatever it is. Okay.
No, it's if I remember correctly, it's free.
Okay. You'd think that would be compelling, right? Hey, Michael, let me mute you, buddy, just because
Oh.
we're hearing eating noises and stuff. Okay, so
So yeah, it's pretty compelling to some people. I mean, the issue is you need to pay for the connection, but there are a lot of people and a lot of community organizations that are paying for the connections.
yeah, because we discussed earlier that there's an issue. Some like if for renters, they're not going to pay $250, especially lower income, right? Some of the issues they've had, some of the obstacles they've had trying to expand this into some of the areas that have been underserved in the past, or it was being underutilized. That was an issue. A transient tenant versus a homeowner.
Correct. But even there, I mean, I was reading through the through some of the comments, and there were people observing that in apartment buildings that are in the coverage area, most of the apartment buildings have gotten wired for Google for the high-speed internet. So presumably then, if the building as a whole is wired, and you just want the limited bandwidth version, you get that for free because your building's already wired for it.
I don't know why they don't just eat the $250, do the whole neighborhood, and just charge $5 instead of free or something. You know what I mean? Why
Well,
do they handicap themselves like this?
Fundamentally, that is what they're doing. I mean, they said that if you want to spread the payments out over 2 years, they'll spread the payments out over 2 years. They'll spread the 250 out over 2 years.
So that would be like $5.
Yeah. But they kind of want to encourage the fact that, look, we want to get these connections out there.
But you know what? If you're a tenant and you're renting and you're in a 1 year lease, or maybe you're only going to be there 6 more months, you might be tempted to do it if there's no contract and if you can just get it and pay $5 a month, whereas you're not going to enter into a new 2-year deal. So you still got this obstacle, especially where you have in the lower income neighborhoods, in the apartments, you've got more of a, they're in and out.
Yeah, but Dan, if you're a landlord and for a modest $250 investment, you can now advertise high-speed internet access.
Absolutely, Alan. That's dead on right.
Yep, I agree there.
Hmm.
Okay.
Well, I missed something, Dan. I got a little confused at the very beginning when you guys were talking about what the article said was 29,000 and change subscribers. Was that television and data together that they're measuring against cable companies, or
No,
was
that's
that
just television. That's just comparing video.
so it's really not a meaningful measure, right? Because people aren't really signing up for this so they can get television. They know how to get television already.
Well, some people are signing up for it to get television. Is it,
29,000 are.
it is it, I think it is a meaningful measure. It is not the end-all and be-all. But I think in particular, I think it's a meaningful measure since at the same time, so many other cable companies are losing their video subscribers.
But who's going to pay $250 just for the video, right? When you can get it Comcast DirecTV without paying $250.
Well, if you're getting the video package, they're throwing in the 200. They're throwing in the connection.
Okay.
So that's essentially rolled into your price already.
So I guess really this is, I don't know if they've released numbers similar to this in the past, but what will be interesting is a year from now when we get the new numbers and see what the growth rate is.
I think they said they have released these numbers in the past. They released them for 2013, and the video numbers and the numbers are more than doubled.
Okay.
But given that they're rolling this out, that's not a surprise.
Okay. All right, cool. So there we go. Go Google Fiber. Please come to Warren County and bring some Chromebooks.
I'm sure that's the next stop.
I think
Warren.
so. Yeah. Yep. Bentonville, Virginia. So next up is Google Code is closing down because developers aren't using it. I think this is just a case of, I don't know if GitHub and the others were around. GitHub is the one I hear most about. So
Yeah.
Alan, tell us what this exactly is and why GitHub is more popular.
Way back when, Google wanted a way to make to essentially set up projects that Google could use so others could get access to the open source code that Google was releasing, and at the same time host other open source projects. This is part of their intent to give back to the open source community. And for a long time, this was a very successful and useful set of tools. It did versioning, it did issue tracking, did a bunch of other things. Over time, however, another site known as GitHub became more and more popular, supported some of the tools that developers were using more of, and code.google.com became less and less used. And what Google's now announced is that they are slowly shutting it down, with the final shutdown taking place about a year from now. In addition to that, though, they're offering, starting immediately, a migration tool to allow people to migrate their code directly to GitHub, keeping all of their version history, all of their tracking issues. All of that will go directly into GitHub. There are also tools to help people migrate to other similar projects, but GitHub is clearly the biggest one that's out there right now.
And that's one you use?
Yes.
And I missed it if you said it. Why is it more popular?
It probably started gaining popularity over code.google.com because it was using a tool called Git, hence the name, GitHub, while Google Code relied on a similar system called Mercurial. And Git, of the two tool sets, Git was the one that most developers adopted. And although Google Code did provide Git support several years ago, it was, it was playing, GitHub had already well established itself by that time.
Okay.
And this is Google basically acknowledging at this point they've got almost no activity on their project, on the projects that are legitimately hosted there.
Right. Other
And
than spam, right?
what was that?
Other than spam.
Other than spam. I said legitimate.
Right.
Yeah, there is some. I mean, this is still where Google's issue trackers are largely. And Google does still host some projects here, but they'll be migrating those off of it in the near future.
But I think they said Google themselves, some of their engineers were hosting some of their official projects were on GitHub, right?
More and more, Google has been hosting their official projects on GitHub, yes.
So, and it's no, I mean, I think it was all free for everybody, so it's not like anybody's losing any revenue. If it's a better product, then I don't know if somebody owns it, or is it like an open source community, or...
GitHub is a commercial product, actually. So
Okay.
although you can have free projects there, they make their money by selling the ability to create private, to host private projects there.
Okay. That's the incentive to...
Private open source?
What was that?
Private open source?
No, it's not
It's
necessarily open source. It's hosting your own projects there.
So it's just a good project management tool for software development.
Yes. And it has the advantage of, if you're also hosting open source projects there, one of the things you can do is you have an open side and a closed side. And you can easily migrate between those two sides.
So your developers can work in either environment at the same time, knowing the same tools and using the same interface and all that.
Exactly. And it lets you, one of the things that Google and many others do is, for example, the Chromium project, which is what turns into Chrome and Chrome OS. They've got a component of that they develop in private. And as portions of that mature, then they move over to the public side.
Mm-hmm.
So you still have this ability to develop things without constant scrutiny of the changes. And yet there is still the ability to, and you're releasing it under open source still. So you've got that public open source side to it. but not
Okay.
everything you do has to be stared at all the time.
Right.
You've got your
I,
working
I
repository.
I posted on this today. I didn't post. I commented on someone's post today uh, because I happened to read this article, just stumbled across it today in the stream, and I find it amazing how thorough the support seems to be from Google to help their developers, the developers in their little community, in their big community of developers, move from their product to somebody else's. And they're providing migration support and tools to do it. And I'm stunned by the level of service that's being offered to help them leave a free product to go to somebody else's product. And I'm glad about it. I think that's really wonderful. I just would like to see a little bit of that love for people that aren't developers.
Well, I think at least part of why you're seeing this is because of the fallout from the Reader fiasco.
Ah, okay.
I think this was, after Reader, when Google essentially said, we're closing Reader, bye. They learned their lesson a little bit and now realized they needed to provide a little bit better support for that.
Well, also a lot of these guys are developing. I mean, there could be Android development projects on there and other Google products being developed for, and they don't want to piss those guys off, right? It's one thing to piss off some tech journalists when they were really the only people using Reader, but it would be bad. And I agree with you that they got burned a little bit over that.
But I mean, the other point to that though is that they've always been pretty big about being able to export your data. I mean, for at least 3 years now, they've made a big deal about it, and it's been a general policy for even longer than that. That although they would like to use your data, they acknowledge the fact that it's up. If you want to take it elsewhere, you're going to take it elsewhere, and they're not trying to hold your data hostage. This is just one extension from that. But I agree. I think it's good that they did so, and hopefully it provides a good trend for future products that may meet end of life.
Hopefully
Well,
not.
that I am very quick to be critical of their customer service when they do their typically shitty job of it. So I am happy to give them plenty of praise and kudos for this. I'm quite impressed.
Hopefully the beginning of a new trend.
Right.
They're less shitty. Go Google. Okay. Next is this.
Dan, that's
Sure.
got to be the new marketing slogan for Google, because that's the kind of quality of marketing that Google normally does. We're less shitty this week than we were last week. That's good Google marketing.
As opposed to the old one, which was like a Hoover vacuum commercial. It sucks. All right. Next up is we've all seen these warnings, and sometimes you see them on very trusted sites like Washington Post or New York Times, that sort of thing. So, and it'll just last a few minutes. But what this is, these warnings that if you click on this link, this site contains harmful programs. Now, most people would have, I mean, it's a red warning, etc. And so people would think that it's going to install a virus, but it could be something as a pain in the ass, but not necessarily a virus, but something that would trick you. Like this one says, attackers might attempt to trick you into installing programs that harm your browsing experience, for example, by changing your home page or showing extra ads on sites that you visit, maybe a toolbar, that sort of thing. So I guess they're going to expand this to a bigger criteria. Alan, what's the deal here?
No, this is just more of the same. It's that they're expanding. Previously, the warning box had come up when the site was potentially doing something malicious itself. Now this will also come up when the site is offering software to download that might be malicious. So it's trying to take it. It's trying to go one step further. That it's not just things that could actively go wrong on the web. It's things that, programs that you might download, trying to prevent you from doing something as foolish as that.
Now, when you see these things pop up on, like, let's say, WashingtonPost.com or that sort of thing, Microsoft.com, probably it's an ad that was fed to them that slipped through the cracks, or how does that
Some of
happen?
them in the past have been ads that have slipped through the cracks. Some are just bad software configurations on the page. Increasingly, what it sounds like this is going to be is just links to bad downloads and bad policies.
Okay. Yeah, I finally installed an ad blocker, and I make all my money from ads, right? From print ads, and so I finally had to install it. I mean, I went to a site like Examiner.com or the WashingtonTimes.com, and there's like literally it looks like uh, an old AOL thing or something. I mean, like my God, like 50 freaking ads, pop-ups and stuff, and then you try to close the tab and you get the thing. Do you really want to close the tab? Yeah, just click to close the tab, asshole. Finally I had to do it, and now they're on to it. So now you go to some things like it'll say you're not going to watch this video until you turn your ad blocker off for this site, and so they're on to me. So there you go. But yeah, I'm seeing this more and more, and it's a good thing. Usually from like is it a Chrome thing, or if you're clicking, is it a Google search result thing, or is it a Chrome thing,
No,
Alan?
it's part of Chrome.
Okay. Okay. All right, now we've got a couple other things here that I absolutely am not competent to discuss. One is Google launches cloud storage Nearline, a low-cost storage service for cold data. And I guess, I mean, I'm familiar with Drive, which competes with Amazon Web Services.
No.
No, see, I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. So I'm just going to... Our next story is presented to you by Alan, our co-presenter tonight. And now half of the panel.
So one of the things that we need to make sure we understand is that this is yet another case of Google competing against itself. So this is not Google Drive, because that is the consumer level way that you store files. This is part of Google Compute Engine, Google's cloud service offerings, which are what competes against Amazon Web Services.
And that would be for me putting my ad InDesign files so that designers and we can all look at them. That's a Drive user. Who is this enterprise level user, and who is this particular product user? Who's this designed
This is for people who are building cloud services. So if I wanted to build a competitor to Drive, I might use Google's Compute Engine or Google App Engine and build it on top of some of their file storage systems. And they've got a number of different options for file storage systems. So does Amazon Web Services. What in past several months ago, Amazon introduced something called Glacier storage. We have this concept of online storage, and those are files that are immediately available to us. Think of your hard drive, for example.
Right.
We have a concept of offline storage, and traditionally this would be you store it on a tape or on a floppy disk, and you'd go file it away somewhere. And if you needed that file again, you'd go find that tape, mount it, get the data off of it, and use the data again.
Mm-hmm.
What Glacier introduced was something a little bit in between. It was more like if you needed a file, then you could request a file, and the offline storage might take a day or two, but it was cheap to retrieve. It was cheap to store it, but it might take a day or two to get it back. Glacier is not quite as cheap, but it would take 3 hours to get it back. So it was faster retrieval. Google is introducing something it calls nearline storage, which is similar to Glacier in that it takes a little bit of time to get it back, and it's cheaper. However, Google will get stuff back from nearline storage in a matter of half a minute to a minute.
What's the application? Glacier would be if I have a large amount of like backups in case something crashes, right?
No, Glacier is more like you need to store your financial records for 7 years. So
Okay.
you close it. So you close out, your 2004 business year. You've got all of your financial records. You put them in a set of files. You ship it off to Glacier because you're required to, under compliance reasons, you're required to have that file. You're required to keep these files for 7 years. But the chance of you getting it, the chance of you needing it, is pretty slim.
And you certainly could wait 3 hours to get it.
Right, but you certainly exactly.
Now, are any of these appealing to consumers? For example, Craig Shipp, he has tons and tons of old video projects that he just wants to keep, and so he buys these very expensive, the hot swappable thing. You put all the drives in and stuff. Would this be an option for him, or is it so kludgy for a consumer level technical expertise that it would be silly?
This is probably just a touch too technical for him. One of the nice things about the way Google implemented this, however, is that the way you treat a file in nearline storage is exactly the same as how you treat a file in their online storage system. So as far as your programs are concerned, they're identical. The only difference is price. Nearline storage files are roughly a third the price per gig per month, or per meg per month. It's roughly a third of the price of online storage. The difference, though, is if you actually need to access it, they charge you for accessing the file.
So if you're Charles Schwab and you're storing everyone's tax stuff for 7 years, it's a good solution.
It's a really good solution because, if you it's there if you need it. If you need to get it back, it'll take you 30 seconds to get it back, but you'll be able to get the answer pretty quickly. It costs you a third of the price, and if you actually need to get it back, it essentially costs you another third to get it back.
How come everybody, very slightly related topic, how come everyone uses Amazon? Like when Amazon goes down, everything goes down. Netflix, everything, all the sites I look at. The only thing that doesn't go down is Twitter, because that's where everyone bitches that Amazon's down. Is it fear of switching to Google stuff, or is Amazon cheaper or better, or is Google stuff
Amazon is not
more
better.
ghetto, or what?
Amazon is not better, and it's not cheaper. Google is definitely cheaper. Part of it is that Amazon was the first one in, so people who started going with them kept going with them, and it's hard to switch away. There are a number of things that are essentially, once you've started building them for one of these systems, it's really hard to stop using that API, which is custom to Amazon. And for the record, Microsoft also has their cloud service, and Microsoft is the other big one in the market. But Google does fairly well. For example, Snapchat is a huge client on Google's cloud services. When I talk to experts in developing for cloud-based stuff, all of them say everyone's using Amazon, but Google is one of the best services out there for this sort of thing.
It reminds me, I was reading an article when I think Pentiums or the P2 or the whatever was out, and I think Jerry Wang still had a 386 on his workstation at Yahoo. And they said, you're the freaking CEO of Yahoo. Why do you have a 386? And he said, upgrading's a pain. And until he absolutely had to do it, pulling teeth, he wasn't going to do it. And there's cost savings, but what is the cost savings in having to switch, right? You have to switch, and then you have to figure out how to switch and how to do it in a seamless way. And what's that going to cost you in terms of PR?
In this case, it isn't really upgrading. It's more switching between one language and another language. And maybe that's a bad analogy to use in front of Michael Ellis, but that's the best way I can describe it.
I see what you did there.
It's a pretty good analogy.
And where could people go to find out about your foreign language? Or do I have to be PC and say international language? Am I allowed to say foreign?
You do.
I think Ted Turner banned that word at CNN for a while.
Because if you're from if you're from Russia, English is a foreign language. You know, I'm just saying.
In between Jane Fonda
Here
and
from
the
Great
Buffaloes, he
Britain, which
banned
is a
foreign.
language.
Huh, Alan?
What was that?
Nothing. I was just making fun of how Americans speak English.
Oh.
It's a tough
yes,
language.
if you're from Britain, English is American is a foreign language.
My dad asked a Chinese guy, I think, or a German, I don't know. I think they were in a bar, so it's probably a German. He asked the
Chinese,
guy,
German,
he said, "Why is English so hard to learn compared to other languages?" And the guy said, he handed him a bar napkin and a pen. And he said, "Spell the word two." Right? The number two, T-O, T-O-O, T-W-O. But like from my Spanish experience, there are no exceptions. I don't believe, right, Michael? I mean, there.
Oh, I'm sure there are some, but
I don't buy that, especially since you've got languages like Chinese that have, if not
Yeah.
the exact same problem, even worse problems.
yeah, I think Chinese is much worse to learn than.
Oh,
than English.
I would
Both.
say yeah, but English is considered one of the harder languages to learn
English is a
because
hard
of our
language,
mainly because of our exceptions.
but the reason that we have so many exceptions is because English is a language that has absorbed elements from many other linguistic paths in the world. So you have a great deal of influence from Latin, from Greek, from the and we adopt words very easily based on where the British Empire was, which was essentially everywhere. And Germanic language, the Germans had a great deal of influence over English as it developed, and we picked up all those different word sources from there and brought them all and made them English words. So
We sort of fit them in where they would fit, and
Yeah.
et cetera.
So
and I think
exceptions
our
are-
idiomatic nuances are very difficult for them
Yeah,
to grasp.
well, for
And our
sure, that's
humor,
true. I
it doesn't
think-
translate well.
I think idioms are like that for every language. I mean, if you take a list of French idioms or German idioms, they're extremely difficult to figure out. They mean what they mean as a phrase. They don't mean anything apart from that, and it's the same in English. Anyway, that's a diversion of the topic from what we're here to talk about.
We've
But
gone
you asked the
completely off
question,
track,
Where
correctly.
should we go for language information? And you go to
Oh, yeah, because we never do that.
languagepracticehangouts.com, and that will connect you to our community in Google Plus and to the calendar of Hangouts, where anyone who's interested in practicing language skills that they're learning elsewhere can get involved with native speakers and other people that are learning and practice. That's it.
Okay. And it's not found on Helpouts. Just kidding.
No, it is definitely not on Helpouts. Turns out Helpouts were not all that helpful.
That was going to be Alan's second book.
Not even close.
That was funny.
Oh my God. As soon as he's done with the MySpace book, he's gonna.
I'm still working on my OS2 book, so don't worry.
Oh my
Alan.
God. I'm sorry, Alan. All right. So anyway, and Pam did laugh at my porn reference. She said, "Okay." So she commented on YouTube. So I'll be checking comments again in just a moment. And Sai said, "Is Alan right or something?" It's like, yes, he's been right thus far, even before the show began. Okay, so next up is, I'm just gonna read the thing. I kind of looked at it. I kind of tried to, but this it would be like me trying to wear a thong. One should know one's limitations and not attempt something that you're incapable of. So I'm just gonna read the title here. Google engineer uncovers electricity leak from memory. I think I kind of understood it, but I think why be thought of as a fool when you can open your mouth and leave no doubt. So, Alan, could you explain this to us? Because it's pretty interesting stuff.
It is kind of interesting. Basically, what Google engineers have demonstrated is that it's possible to change one portion of computer memory and, in doing so, affect a completely different portion of the memory. And, the initial reaction is, yeah, okay, so what? What Google was able to what these engineers were able to demonstrate is that in some cases, the way that they were changing the memory and thus affecting the other memory could introduce security vulnerabilities on certain operating systems.
Okay.
Because most of our operating systems go under the assumption that we can control how memory is changed, that the operating system is in charge of changing the memory. If they can change the memory using a backdoor method, they're now essentially working around some of these things. The technique is called rowhammer, and basically what they've done is they're pounding on, they're literally using the operating system to rapidly make changes to a particular row of transistors in a computer's memory. And these affect and they do it enough and in such a way that they can affect nearby transistors as well.
Wow.
And if those nearby transistors are partly responsible for security components in the operating system, you can now change security settings. Google was able to demonstrate this under certain limited operating systems on certain limited machines sometimes. So it's
and they announced it.
And well, they announced it because previously this sort of thing had been theoretical only.
So maybe it wasn't an operating system that comes directly from Google, but perhaps someone else's operating system? Is that possible?
It's theoretically possible on any operating system.
I know, but which one did they mention in the article?
They did it against Linux.
Oh, okay. Well, all right.
And part of the reason why is Linux is also the easiest one to verify what they've done.
Mm-hmm.
In doing this demo, but it was a proof of concept. The same technique could theoretically be applied to any other operating system that's out there.
Interesting.
Are there other side effects that may have? Again, I'm obviously not an engineer, but for example, could this be? Are these like little tiny amounts? Or could it contribute to heat buildup in the way that a CPU does? And or is it so microscopic level that
it is? That's an interesting way. I'm not a hardware engineer, and my last hardware engineering class was a very long time ago. Similar to how if you heat up a CPU, it might start producing some errors, and those errors could result in security exploits. Similar to that is essentially what they're doing. Is they're making one part of the memory component fall outside of its normal operating parameters. And in doing so, it's affecting other parts.
Another weird question, could it be harnessed in some way? Either physically harnessed, because there's so much of it out there on a smaller level, and is it consistent? And so it could perhaps be harnessed to actually store data in some way. It would have to be consistent.
I can't see how you can actually use it to store data, since essentially this is affecting the memory.
So the leaks are to directly neighboring transistors. Is that correct?
Right. It's basically affecting other memory components.
So there's no quantum mechanical effect here where it jumps across to the other side of a circuit. It's without passing through the transistors. It's the neighboring transistors that get affected.
Yes.
Okay.
But it's probably an increasing issue as devices, as we've seen with the iPad Air and the MacBook Air. Everyone wants smaller and smaller, lighter, lighter, thinner, thinner. So it becomes more of an issue as we try to cram more stuff together. And maybe some unforeseen results, right?
In the effect of this, but it's interesting that the electricity leaks. What isn't explained to me so far, and I have to admit I haven't read the article yet, so I'm curious about how they controlled it to create a predictable problem So a problem I can understand, but predictable enough to be considered a threat is, I don't. That's unclear to me how they did that.
Without fully knowing myself, what I can speculate they did is they were able to map particular sets of memory addresses to particular locations on the chip itself.
Mm-hmm.
Once they were able to do that, they were able to directly change one set of memory addresses
Mm-hmm.
and see how that affects the nearby memory addresses.
Yep.
And once they were able to do that, they could establish a set of, okay, if we do this, it has a good chance of changing this other part, and if we change this other part, here are the security implications of that.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
this also explains why Alan is on the program. Because I am not a memory expert, because I am not accustomed to having any memory. So let me do some
We
comments.
discussed last week, Dan, but you probably don't remember that.
Thank you. You took my line. I was going to say I once was a memory expert, but I've forgotten how.
What's the saying? I'm like a fish. Every 2 minutes, I forget everything I've ever learned. Okay, so Cy has some comments here. Let's see. Okay, Google, is Alan Furstenberg right? That was early on in the program. I actually don't know on the last topic. I assume so, because he sounded fancy.
He was right. I can confirm.
The GitHub
I believe that was Cy talking about the truthfulness algorithm.
Oh, okay. So the GitHub interface is clearly superior, says Cy. GitLab is the open source clone of GitHub and is equally as awesome. I haven't come across anyone so far who is too upset with Google code going away. There are too many other better options out there. And kudos, as Michael said, as Alan said, kudos to them for admitting that and moving on, and kudos to them for doing such a good job at service.
The biggest criticism I've seen about code going away are are people saying, look, here's Google killing another service. What are they going to kill next?
And of course,
and I think while in some ways that's a legitimate concern, I think code is pointing to the fact that, look, they're not going to keep alive services that nobody uses.
Right.
And they're going to, at least hopefully this is a good indication of, if they are going to kill something, they're going to provide the migration alternative.
And as the host of Google Plus Week, I'm well versed in something like that. trolling ourselves. All right, Glacier.
Here slowly shuts down. You mean?
Yeah, we're trying to get every episode in we can before
Before
we
the
get
end.
or-cutted. We get or-cut. The new verb. Okay, new Google motto: do less shitty. Glacier pricing is complex, and most don't understand that the real expense isn't really in the storage; it's in the cost of retrieval. Interesting. I swear to God, there's a video Amazon did. I've referenced it before in this program, where they were showing for like regular consumers how to set up and host your WordPress blog on AWS. And I watched it and I just broke into hysterical laughter because it was the most kludgy freaking thing I've ever seen in my life. I was like, no way in hell would I do this. And so then a quick diversion. Speaking of hosting a blog and it not being worth the effort of AWS, we talked about this on Monday. I was shocked to see GigaOM go under. One of my all-time favorite. There are certain sites that are BS, like Mashable, which has some good stuff, some original stuff, and a lot of just clickbait garbage. But GigaOM, The Verge, ReadWrite, and remember GigaOM bought ReadWrite. That was the first shot across the bow, or the warning sign. But I'm in the content business, and everyone keeps telling me how my industry's dying, and we're still here, chugging along. And then I see, and GigaOM had the GigaOM Pro, the paid level. They also had events, which is what TechCrunch did. And I was just shocked that this is a loss. These guys are going to, and gals, Stacey Higginbotham and Matthew Iglesias and the others will find other gigs because they're very talented. And I've reached out to some and suggested some places for them to go that might be hiring. But I just, I was very sad and shocked at this. Alan, did you see this coming?
I did not see this coming about GigaOM, but honestly, I almost never pay attention to them, so I'm really the wrong person to ask.
Oh, you don't find them to be a competent or one of your favorite sites, I guess.
I don't find them to be one of my favorite sites. No, I found them to be competent whenever I did read stories from them, but I almost never went there.
I guess you're more interested in technical articles, where I'm more interested in general non-technical tech stories, if that makes sense.
It does, but I tend not to read stories from third-party sites. Just in general, I don't. If I don't read the source, then, I read source information.
And I try to always post that as well. Like, I'd rather post to the actual Supreme Court decision or SCOTUS blog, which is the next best thing, if I'm covering that sort of thing. Was The Verge, is The Verge one you go to, or?
I don't go to any of them.
I guess you actually have a job. you're actually a productive citizen.
Really, occasionally, yes, I would have been redirected to a GigaOM story. Occasionally, it would have been Wired story. Occasionally, The Verge. Those are the ones I probably trusted the most. After that, there were assorted Android whatever stories that I may have paid more or less attention to. But honestly, I would visit one or two of these a day at the most.
Okay. All right. So anyway, I just was shocked at that and saddened. And I've always thought Ohm is a great guy. I'd love to have him on the show sometime. He's probably laying low now for a little bit. But it was quality stuff. But that doesn't pay the bills, I guess. So back to Sci. If you want to see the cost, you can use this handy calculator written by Jay Brandt. This is a comment on the post on Google Plus of this program. And there's that link there. He says the paper is wet. Oh, he's talking about idioms, I guess, and how English is difficult. The paper is wet. Conditions are unfavorable. My eyebrows are burning. I'm pissed. And he says Dan McDermott could totally rock a thong. I don't know. I'd have to have a few drinks first. And Sai says a vulnerability that allows for code execution only ever needs to work sometimes. Okay, so Sai has a clue. All right. That's something you just couldn't unsee. Me in a thong. That would be a devastating, possibly result in the shutdown of YouTube. The complete abandonment of one of their premier properties, which probably doesn't make them a lot of actual profit. Okay, next up is a single. Okay, a couple interesting story, and then just a funny story. A large or a single Project Loon balloon can cover an area the size of Rhode Island, and this is a neat story. That it's these I guess weather balloons 2.0, and they're setting up. Originally, I thought it was just to provide internet, but I guess they're going to do it over LTE or 4G, as opposed to I was thinking like a Wi-Fi type thing. But they said a single one of these things could cover the area of Rhode Island, and which brings up the question of why it's called that when it's not an island. But anyway, I digress. So one of the things that they said was
its real name is Rhode Island and Providence Plantations.
Well, I didn't want to be a show off. I'm full of crap. I'd forgotten that. I knew that, but I'd forgotten that. So anyway, Rhode Island, from a single balloon providing 4G LTE. And I don't know what the latency would be like. I don't know what the performance would be like compared to what you'd get from local things, but obviously that's pretty impressive. And another example they used is they show kids in a school in Brazil, in a very remote area of Brazil, and in the backdrop you see on a projector screen, it appears, there's Google.com shown there, and it's the first time ever that this school has had internet. And another thing that they mentioned in the article is there are some places that would just love to be able to have internet even an hour a day, where everyone knows, like from 2 to 3 p.m. the balloon comes. And this reminds me of when I was in Liberia in between wars. I was there under Doe, and then Charles Taylor took over after I left. But my parents were there after I left, and they said that they had electricity for certain hours a day and water for certain hours a day, that sort of thing. So this is a real thing that I've gone through, or my family's gone through. But I just think that this is amazing. And this is not, it's going to be outside of the U.S. first. But what are your thoughts on, I'm very surprised at the range of these balloons. What do you guys think?
It's great. I'm glad Rhode Island's finally getting internet.
Maybe now they want to elect such crazy politicians. Just kidding.
Well,
Just kidding. To our Rhode
Send
Island
your
viewer.
letters. It's Dan McDermott, McDermott.
No, they had that one guy who was kind of outlandish, but adds color to the Senate, right?
Yeah, I'm from Illinois. There's nobody that stacks them up.
Oh my
next to
God,
ours,
you're probably corrupt as well.
just by association.
Yeah, you are literally the bowels of American politics in Illinois. So, any thoughts on this, Alan? The balloon thing. It was called Project Loon because I think Vic Gendotra said it was called that because it's balloons and because it's kind of half crazy. But it seems to be progressing along nicely so far.
Where was the town that just got the internet access the first time, Dan?
It's in Brazil. It's a very
Brazil.
remote school in Brazil, and I'm not sure if it's how they're doing it, but I imagine it's a showcase thing, right? They're hooking them up. They got a team there. They're making it, for PR purposes, but it does show the power. And imagine one day if we're over North Korea and Iran, unfettered internet. It'd be nice to hit Russia a little bit. So there you go. And then the other thing here, Alan's being quite quiet, is one of the balloons crashed, and the headline's great. It's a bird, it's a plane. Google balloon crash alarms town. And the crash of one of Google's Loon balloons for relaying internet service was enough to have security forces summoned to a mountain township in central Mexico. Reports first of a plane crash, then of a skydiver plummeting to Earth sent soldiers, state police, and civil defense workers swarming into the remote area Thursday. They found one of the huge jellyfish-shaped balloons that Google is used to carrying antennas to deliver online access. Originally, residents said an aircraft had fallen, and later, because of the balloon's shape, they said it was a parachute, said some guy. The State Department said in a statement that the balloon caused surprise among inhabitants because of the sound it made when it fell. He said no one was hurt, and the equipment came down in an unpopulated area. And then my favorite paragraph, Veracruz authorities have notified Google to come pick up the remains of the balloon and the transmission equipment. So I just thought was anecdotally funny. I don't guess there's a lot of
It is
news.
fun.
It's not anatomically, it's anecdotally.
Yeah.
Richard is I'm getting trolled by the kid. I'm getting trolled from multiple directions. Alan has some competition. So anyway, fear for your lives when Project Loon comes.
Right.
This could wipe out half of Delaware.
When
Or
it
Rhode
literally
Island.
comes to your neighborhood.
Yeah. All right, so next up is Google now tells you if there will be Wi-Fi and power outlets on your next flight. A, that's cool. B, this would pressure more airlines to offer these things. So obviously, Michael, as a seasoned traveling veteran, you would welcome such data. And I guess it's in partnership with some company whose name obviously escapes me.
I'm not sure frankly, I'm not sure it matters to me very much if I get advance notice that they're going to have Wi-Fi on the plane. Maybe it does, but I basically assume that I can get nothing useful done on the plane with the Wi-Fi they provide. So knowing in advance that I have it and still can't use it and still can't be effective with it because it's too slow or too unreliable and it's too expensive, all of those things, like, it doesn't help me very much.
I
to
lived
know
in,
in it.
I like the fact that it would put pressure on more airlines to
But
offer
does
it.
it?
I would think. I mean,
I would think it would matter a lot more the passengers that are sitting there in front of the staff of the airline complaining that there's no Wi-Fi, that would have more impact than Google now announcing it in advance of the plane
well, I
leaving the
would
ground.
think I mean, if they know that if they don't have it, people might select a different airline. But isn't it kind of like a monopoly thing in most airports? You don't really have a lot of
Yes.
choices.
You have choices, but there aren't very many choices, and Wi-Fi or not is probably not going to be the thing that decides for most people because the Wi-Fi is not good enough to be distinguishing.
I haven't
I mean,
flown in a number of years. When I flew, it was often in business, sometimes first class, and the British Airways, and everything was free. Once you got on there, and if I went now and like, you know, Nurse Velda anally probes me with some thing, I mean, I'd probably freak out. I don't know if I could handle it. I'd just as soon be like John Madden and get a bus, or not go. They can come to me.
Yeah, but for many people, that's really not a choice.
True.
So
I guess you
they
can't.
they get on. I mean, you get on the planes when you have to get on the planes, and nobody does it. Really, literally, nobody that's working does it because they want to. They do it because they have no other choice.
Right.
Because there's wherever we have the options to not travel, business people are choosing not to travel wherever
Sure.
they can.
If you can Skype or phone call or whatever.
Right.
Um,
Note the distinct lack of the mention of Google Hangout.
I swear to God, we tried it for the radio. I'm using Skype. We tried the Hangout, the regular Hangout audio, because when I do it, I'm here in the station's in Forest, Virginia, which is like 3 hours south, right? So I'm using Skype. We did a test, and I've talked them up. I said, let's do Hangout. Let's try Hangout. We did the Hangout. The audio sucked, of course, compared to Skype. Then we tried a studio mode, and the audio was very good and comparable to Skype, they said, but the volume level was so low that they would have had to raise the slider thing on the mixing board all the way up, and the engineer was freaking out like no, because like if Dan gets a Facebook notification or a Google Plus Hangout beep or something like that, it's going to blow up our station, right? You don't want to put the slider all the way up. So I'm using Skype.
Right. Yeah.
That's what
the way
everyone
it is.
uses, including Leo Laporte and CNN, everybody.
And there's no Skype client for a Chromebook.
Interesting. Is Microsoft
Which
trolling Chrome or Chrome's trolling Microsoft?
No, I think it's Microsoft. Isn't it, they? The word is that they're working on a client for Chrome, but
They have
I don't believe it.
like in Indiana Jones. We have a top team working on this at the very last scene.
Yes.
Yeah, Microsoft's on it. They're on it. It's any day now. There could probably be an announcement. Okay, so
Any
next up,
century-
huh?
Any century now, we should see it.
Absolutely. Okay, so Lockheed Martin's laser can stop a truck from over a mile away. This is just kind of cool. I think there was a video. They had a drone or something, and I don't know if it was them or Boeing or whoever, but they shoot it out of the sky with a laser. And my uncle is a laser scientist, so and there was this ship that had, I guess, did the drone, and they said it's like, instead of like, 300 grand for a bomb or 3 million or whatever it is, that it's like, zero point 0.5 cents to shoot something. And obviously there's a cost savings there. But do you see any impact on this? I just thought it was noteworthy. Okay.
No.
So get ready, ISIS. Okay, next up this was actually the most interesting story to me, and has nothing to do with Google Plus or technology, really. I guess it has to do with food technology, but we occasionally talk about food. And we talked about the pink slime, which wasn't really slime and wasn't pink, and the thing in the picture wasn't actually what they were putting in there. But anyway, so I teased spam in the beginning of the show. Here's a can of spam. But this is a really interesting article, and I recommend people read it to learn some of the stuff that is in our food and I did not know. I consider myself sort of an aficionado of this stuff, but I did not know a lot of this. So the headline, it's, I mean, talk about clickbait. Um,
Mhm.
what makes baked beans so tasty? It's all the wallpaper glue. Now I'm not a fan of analogies like this because that's like saying, like they said, oh, they're putting yoga mat stuff in food or whatever. That's like saying because something has salt in it, they're using road chemicals in your food. It's just not fair to, starch is in naturally occurring in lots of foods, corn and potatoes. I have to soak when I make the pomme frites, the actual Belgian frites. I soak the potatoes to get rid of the starch. But what they're doing is, here's a great example. This is just one example. This picture is an egg product. If you ever notice, you go to Wally World or Kroger or whatever, and you buy like some sort of salad pre-packaged, it's a miracle. All the eggs are exactly the same size. Well, how do they do that? This is how they do it. It's a freaking tube. It's some kind of manufactured egg product. So I'm looking
Really?
here. Yeah, look at the link there, and look at this tube, and I mean, I don't know what kind of chicken could crop this thing out because my God, it'd be
Oh
like,
my God.
I
yeah.
point out that the story doesn't actually talk about.
I know
that
it's
egg.
just it shows you the fraud's a strong word, but so anyway, I'm looking here at the spam, and Alan was trolling me very accurately. So spam is I get the low sodium spam from Costco, and it's great for stir fry. And tonight the kid made this thing. We had shrimp scampi a couple nights ago. Actually, he had it. I had like little tiny piece of shrimp, and he had the rest. Life is unfair, but so we left the scampi sauce, which is basically butter and garlic, right? Parsley or something, maybe some lemon zest. But we left that and just covered it with a plate. And then we were trying to figure out what to use it for. So I said, well, let's just do some spam, because spam is kind of like tofu. It just adopts whatever you put it in, and it's not a strong flavor on its own.
I don't agree at all, but okay.
Well, if you make a stir fry with like some Szechuan spicy food,
I mean, Spam has a ham sort of flavor profile to it. It's relatively strong, I think.
well, I guess it's all.
I like how you say flavor profile and not flavor.
Well,
Well,
because it's
profile would encompass
chemicals,
texture.
It's got to
and-
be a profile. It's complex.
He's just trying to be smart because of our audience.
That's it. I'm trying to live up to the audience's
So
standards.
Cy doesn't think he's some kind of Neanderthal because he eats spam. So
I already.
all right. Anyway, I bet Pam's laughing again. All right. So ingredients: pork with ham. We use the term pork and ham loosely, right? And what the hell's the difference between
Right.
pork and ham?
Well, ham is pork, but not all pork is ham.
Are you serious?
Of
Are we
course.
back to why English is difficult to learn?
No. This is true in all languages. Ham is a particular cut of the pig. Pork is all of the pig, everything. And a ham is a particular part of the pig.
It's not actually a pig, though, right? It just grows in rectangles on styrofoam trays.
What we're trying to say is that this is the pink slime of ham.
Okay, so basically,
That-
after they're
that is
done,
very accurate.
after they're done slaughtering the pigs, they take a broom and they sweep up all the nostrils and earlobes and eyeballs and stuff, and they make a nice paste, and they produce this delicious product called spam. Allegedly, I'm sorry, I have to lawyer up when I talk about this stuff. Mechanically separated chicken. I'm not sure how chicken plays into spiced ham.
It's not
It's a filler. This is
Ham.
once again the pink slime of chicken.
right.
Water,
Of ham.
salt, to compensate for the shitty quality ingredients thus far.
Right.
They add salt, and wow, it tastes really good. Modified potato starch, which is what this thing is about. Now, why would potato starch be in there? And then sugar, sodium phosphates, I assume is some sort of preservative or color preservative. Potassium chloride, sodium ascorbate, and sodium nitrite. No idea what the hell that stuff is, although it's in almost everything we eat. So if you eat from a can,
Right.
spam.
Which I never.
So I just thought, we've talked about the other kind of spam so often on this show. We go ahead and hit up the origin, and this is why they call it spam, right? This is junk. So anyway, this article is shocking. They said, like, for example, the way that a lot of stuff like light mayonnaise, the way that they do it is they take real mayonnaise, then they add a bunch of starch, and that gives it the consistency. It extends the product. So they take a small amount of the expensive ingredient, then they add a bunch of starch, which is basically sugar, right?
Well, no.
Or filler, or what the hell is it?
Starch is a carbohydrate that converts to sugar in your system.
Okay, so it's a miracle that we're all fat, right? Eating all this
Yes,
crap.
that's why all of those light foods are not actually good for people that want to lose weight.
I did it. I remember when I was fat and I was trying to become less fat, and I did the whole lean cuisine and all this stuff. And the amount of sodium, I actually gained weight switching from like actual food
Yeah.
to this junk in a tray. But this article is just shocking to me. And some of the stuff I looked at, like I looked at a can of chili from Costco, Stag chili, and hey, Richard, will you hand me a can of that, please? Yeah, I'm gonna. There's like 5 different kinds of this stuff in there. It's a very prominent ingredient, so it stretches it, and and apparently it can mock any kind of texture you want. It can be like fat or a creamy consistency or whatever. No. The Stag chili. It's in the box right near it on the floor there. But I was looking. See, it brought me more spam, and it's. So anyway, I was just shocked at this, and the egg tube kind of, again, as Alan pointed out, has nothing to do with it here. But if you look at this thing, this is a freaking what the hell is this? Were any chickens damaged in the production of this? But that's how the salads have these perfectly formed eggs, right? You wonder, like, what do they do with the ends of the eggs? They just use the middle, but they're all identical. So here we go.
So
The Stag chili. Go ahead.
Is it actually an egg, Dan? I didn't read the article yet. Is it an egg?
I don't know.
Or
It
is
says
it...
food manufacturers
Your
often buy.
article doesn't talk about the damn egg at all.
I know. I'm talking about it though.
The whole sentence to it.
I'm letting America know
Mhm.
that I don't know what I'm letting America know. Probably have more of Michael Ellis's international friends watching anyway at this hour. Okay, so it's Friday night. I mean, what else could someone possibly be doing than watching a tech show about eggs and starch? So, ingredients. This is Stag chili from Costco, which is delicious, right?
Yeah.
So here are the ingredients: beef, water, tomatoes, beans, green chilies, okay, kidney beans, red chili pepper puree, sugar. Here we go. Textured vegetable protein, which is soy flour, caramel color, seasoning, modified food starch. That's the first ingredients in the seasoning, okay? Now we're in the starch. Salt, dehydrated onion, hydrolyzed soy protein, more hydrolyzed, whatever the hell that is. Sounds like something grandma didn't do in her kitchen. Dehydrated bell peppers, modified corn starch, starch number 2 or 3. Salt, again. Dehydrated tomatoes, jalapeno peppers, masa flour, yellow corn.
Hydrolyzing is to break down something by a chemical reaction involving water.
Okay. Wheat flour, flavoring, chili powder, hydrolyzed corn, soy, and wheat protein.
Which is not just the same as, say, steaming or braising or boiling.
Or anything you would actually do in your freaking kitchen.
Right.
It's a bunch
John,
of...
I'm gonna since you're talking about the food you have in your kitchen, I'm going to show mine.
It's an orgy of... Is that a chicken pot pie?
It is a chicken pot pie.
Did you manage to create it without hydrolyzed soy protein?
I did. I made it from everything, from scratch.
How come I'm here eating good stuff and I'm fat and you guys are skinny?
You should come and have some of my pot pie.
I'll just swing by New York or Beijing or wherever you are this week.
Well, I only do pot pies at home in New York.
Don't you own restaurants, Michael?
I do. One.
What kind of food is it?
It's American food. It fits for a Midwestern audience. You know, it's not It's not particularly fancy, but it's definitely fine dining. It's nice food.
Cool. And you're skinny. That's why we hate Michael. He eats whatever he wants and he's skinny.
I'm not that skinny, actually. You only see me from here up.
Oh, you like those MySpace girls that go like this?
Yeah,
They extend their face out and
so that their neck doesn't crape and
yeah,
everything.
yeah. Oh, well, I'm gonna get hate mail, or
What MySpace girls? I don't know about that.
I'm older than you are technically, I guess. So anyway, I recommend people read this and learn about the eggs. I'm just tweaking Alan. It doesn't talk about the eggs. It just has an egg picture to show whatever the f that is. It doesn't look like any chicken laid that. So anyway, I guess you get what you pay for.
Um,
You know,
as
the old
another
saying.
diversion of topics, my sister just messaged me and asked me to be sure to tell you guys that tomorrow is Pie Day.
It is.
Did you know that?
I did not know this. Is it
Yes.
any kind of pie, like a meat pie?
It's any kind of pie you want as long as it's 3.14159 long or big across, whatever.
I know that Pam is wondering if I'm going to maintain my composure right now at
Why?
the Pie Day reference, but I am going to maintain my composure. And Pam is
Why do you
laughing
do
right
that?
now.
You normally explode or something?
No, it's a joke that Pam will get.
It's an inside joke on the internet.
There are many definitions of pie, not just.
How?
Anyway, moving right along.
Oh,
Um,
thank you. That was
So-
reference enough for me.
Yeah, so
Now
here's
Pam's
the
laughing
thing.
too.
I asked Unilever, manufacturer of Hellmann's, why there was starch in the Hellmann's Light. John, a customer engagement was frank. It's there for the texture. It makes it come out of the bottle more sticky and less runny. The regular Hellmann's mayonnaise is fattier, and that makes the consistency naturally. Consistency is one of the secrets of starch's charm. It's why you use starch as wallpaper glue. After all, starch is ultimately bonded glucose molecules, which are soluble in water but come together when semi-dry. In a supermarket aisle full of taste enhancers, antibiotic-laced meat, and crude oil-derived colorings, bland old plant-derived starch sounds like, as Blytham puts it, the least of our worries, but it is not. So, anyway, read the article.
And never buy, you don't, there's no reason at all why you need to buy mayonnaise. You can make mayonnaise from eggs and oil. That's it. And lemon juice.
What about salmonella? Are you going to die?
I'm planning to die eventually.
Am I
But it won't-
going to have like the shits for 3 weeks if I make your mayonnaise with raw
No.
eggs?
No. No, you won't.
But I'll probably be better off than if I eat
You know when
that.
the last time we had a salmonella and egg outbreak was in the U.S.?
I don't know.
It's been quite a long time ago. I
Why aren't you looking it up right now like I am?
Because I'm busily
Because
conducting a
think. He's
program.
going to depend on you to look it up because he knows you will.
All right, so let's do a check of comments, then we'll do how is our week. Please read the article if you're interested in this. Okay, so Cy, he says,
Actually, I take that back. There is actually quite a prevalent amount of salmonella in the U.S. in eggs.
so that would make me right and you the other thing.
Wrong.
But that's only in the U.S. because the rest of the world actually uses a freaking vaccine that they vaccinate their chickens. So you don't get salmonella in eggs.
And
But we don't do that.
we also have a problem here with our eggs because we wash our eggs, and they don't
Yeah.
wash their eggs in Europe. And the reason that that matters is because an egg has a natural protective quality to it that keeps the salmonella out of the egg. It's on the egg surface, it's not in the egg. And in the U.S., we wash our eggs so that protective coating comes off, and the salmonella can get into the egg.
Which is why an American egg could not be sold in Europe and a European egg could not be sold in the United States.
Well,
Because they
the
don't
European
wash
egg
them.
Can't be sold in the United States because we're fighting back against them for not letting us sell our eggs in their market. They won't let us sell our eggs in their market because our eggs have been washed and they can contain salmonella for that reason.
Why can't someone just pick up a phone and fix that? How stupid.
Well,
Not
what
that
we
this
have
is the
Obama
biggest
for.
international relations challenge facing the United States. I'm just saying. Side,
These issues are complex.
um, okay, so a vulnerability that allows for code execution only ever needs to work sometimes. Oh, I said that already. Dan McDermott, you can store data on the internet. It's trivial. You push data on the internet across a high latency line. When it reaches its destination, you push it back. If your line is sufficiently slow, you can store as many bits as the bandwidth will allow. And Sai says, this answers the question, if a loon falls in the forest, does it make a sound? Apparently it does, the sound of a screeching Mexican city. Or, I use the term city loosely. It's a rural
Yes.
area. If you're going to rock the thong, stay away from the beans. Indeed. Sai says,
Okay.
tune in next week for McDermott in the middle.
Now that is an image we really didn't want to know right after the thong comment.
You know?
Mhm.
Okay, foundshit.com egg sausage roll with a hyphen there. It's egg that is cooked and formed into a tube. Nothing gross, just different. Agree. And then he's got a link.
What do you
there.
mean agreed? You've been making fun of it for the past 20 minutes.
I was trolling it because it's some kind of egg log. It was funny looking. I don't think anyone's dying. I mean, I've eaten them.
But are they eggs or are they not eggs?
They're eggs. It's just formed, and I guess they separate. What they probably do is they separate the yolk, and they
And the white.
yeah. Oh, I got a question for you, Michael. Pronounce the word folk.
Folk.
What's the white of an egg called?
Yolk.
No, it's.
Oh, it's the albumin.
I got.
Oh, the white of the
I
egg.
got
Oh,
him.
Jesus Christ.
I got him.
Yes, it's
Um,
the albumin of the egg. Sorry.
Yes.
Wow. I fell for that hook, line, and sinker.
Anyway, or as they say in Front Royal, anyways.
Anyways,
Yeah, so that happened. All right, so thank you all for your comments. Let me check for YouTube comments. If I can find YouTube here. Pam is still laughing, apparently. Okay, so how was your week, Mr. Ellis? Or wait, coming up on Monday, we're going to discuss Android news. Anything standing out there, Alan, that we need to plug?
I don't know, probably.
Okay. All right, so maybe we'll revisit that in a moment. Michael Ellis, restaurateur and frequent traveler to Asia, an all-around good guy who's apparently
One time.
larger than we expected. How was your Google Plus week, sir?
I had a good week. Uneventful, but good. And I'm getting ready for St. Patrick's Day. I bought my brisket on Tuesday, and I started the corning process. And I spend my 30 seconds every day flipping my brisket over. And Tuesday night, I'll have a party here with people coming for dinner.
How does one corn beef?
You make a spice rub of kosher salt and a variety of spices, including allspice if you have it, but I didn't have any, so I made it. Cinnamon, nutmeg, and something else, cloves, bay leaves. I think that might be, there's probably something else, but I can't remember.
Now that
You-
that derives the flavor, but what about the
Right.
unique texture you see from a corned beef?
So you rub the salt mixture, the curing salt all over the surface of the brisket, and you press the brisket between on a tray with a weight on top of it, and you let it dry age in the refrigerator for 7 days, turning it over every day, and the pressing is what gives it that unique texture. And the salt and spices cure the meat and go all the way through. And in 7 days, after doing that, you take it out, you rinse it off, and you put it in a pot of water and boil it. Simmer it for several hours. You add the vegetables at the right times so that the vegetables come out properly cooked.
I bet you could rock some corned beef more than I could rock a thong.
And more than I can rock a thong.
I bet you could do a mean oh gosh, what is it? Not Yorkshire pudding. What's the stuff with the mashed potatoes on top?
Shepherd's pie.
Oh yeah, I bet you can cook that stuff.
Hmm.
So you're looking forward to St. Patrick's Day. I imagine there may be some beer involved.
Yes, but I'm not. I haven't decided if I'm serving beer. I'm definitely. The menu is the corned beef, cabbage, rutabagas, and potatoes and carrots. That'll all be that's the main course, and I'm making Irish soda bread to go with it, and then I think the only thing for dessert we're going to have is Irish coffee. So I don't know. I haven't decided if I'm going to have beer or not. I might serve uh, a cocktail called a black. Oh, what the heck's the name of it? I want to say Black Swan, but that might not be right. Black something. It's Guinness and sparkling wine together.
Excellent.
So I might serve that to the guests when they come in.
And for folks who don't know, Guinness, while it appears to be very rich, is actually very low carb, very low alcohol content, and very low calorie.
Yeah, didn't know
Which
that.
a lot of folks didn't know. Okay, so I'll be right back while Alan gives us a quick preview of Monday night's program and tells us how his week went. Hopefully.
Sure. On Monday night, Dan and I are going to talk to each other, probably somewhat randomly, for somewhere between 30 minutes and an hour. Same as we usually do about Android. Chances are good that I will be trashing Samsung for them doing something incredibly stupid, whatever that might be. We will probably talk about a cellular phone from either China or Russia, which Dan will pretend to never have heard about, even though we've covered it on the show at least 3 times. In addition, I think it is safe to bet that we will be talking about the Moto something, exactly which something is in question. We will probably also talk at least a little bit about Android Wear and possibly even Android TV. All of that's coming up Monday, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, for our Android week.
That's the regularly scheduled Monday night 9 o'clock program.
Yes.
Yes, that's
Which last week we had at 6 p.m.
right.
Or maybe it was 2 weeks ago we had it at 6 p.m. for no good reason whatsoever.
So how was your Google Plus week?
It was pretty good. Busy. I'm pretty tired.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking forward to the weekend.
Good.
That's about it.
I went to the Metropolitan Museum of Art tonight, which is why I was a little late coming to the show.
What exhibit?
Actually, it was a tour for new members, and it was called Art and Architecture, and they took us through an explanation of how the building has changed as the collection has grown. And it was really very interesting.
That's interesting.
And then they
architecture. The big architecture news, of course, is that Michael Graves died yesterday.
I don't know who that is.
He's an architect.
Okay.
Thanks for that, Alan.
That was insightful. What did he build?
Architect known for, I'm not even sure what buildings he's most known for these days, because he was a very prolific and very popular architect.
Hmm.
Who obviously had a dramatic effect on your life, really.
Yes.
I hung out with a number of architects.
I love
for
that.
a few years.
The biggest architecture news was that Michael Graves died. Who was he? An architect. Filling in for Dan McDermott tonight is Alan.
Architecture news doesn't spread really far and wide, so that's as much as we might know about it.
If anyone has never been to a real art museum, you don't get it until you go. You can look at all the textbooks and the color reproductions and the pictures of the Mona Lisa on the internet you want, until you go and you see what these people did, and the eyes follow you as you walk. I mean, it's unreal. It's amazing. You really don't appreciate it until you see some of these classic paintings or contemporary or old, whatever. Until you're there, You can't.
I had a bit of a shock tonight at the museum because I was on the tour with a tour of highlights of the museum with a docent who was taking new members around to show us generally like the layout of the whole museum and some of the most spectacular pieces. And they handpicked like 6 pieces to walk us past. But while we're walking to one of the pieces, I walk up the staircase, and there in front of me is the painting that's in my living room. And I look at this painting on the wall, and I'm like, oh my God, I have an exact copy of that painting in my living room.
Is it the one we see behind you?
You can't see it now, but sometimes you've seen it behind me.
I would have said probably not, since the painting that we saw just there didn't look like modern art to me. And
It looks more like a Versailles type thing behind him, yeah. So go ahead, speak there, Michael. So I'll click on you here. Let me move my mouse over. Sorry. I think he's disengaged his apparatus. He's still there. He's unplugged something. I've broken his. Well, okay, there we go. I don't know what the hell's going on.
Anyway,
So my week was good. It was the off week, so I didn't have to do a paper, which is why I'm a little more alert than normal, only slightly so. But I had a wonderful time yesterday. The kid had his birthday, so I picked him up from high school, took him to the airport, and he had mentioned to me a few months ago he'd never been in a plane before. He'd never flown. So I chartered an airplane, and he got to do like a half an hour, and he doesn't have a driver's license yet, but he got to fly a plane. So he'll forever be able to say, oh, I flew my first airplane before I was legally allowed to drive a car. So I just thought that was really cool, and I actually enjoyed it more than he did. So it was funny. It was fun to watch him, and I got to say like, okay, happy birthday, and I did it on my phone. The reaction, I said, you're gonna fly in an airplane at the airport. I told him we were just swinging by to drop something off or whatever. I fibbed. So that was really cool.
Sorry for dropping abruptly there. My Chromebook power cord has a frayed end on it, and when I turned, it worked and the computer off. So I was going to show you. You asked me the question about the piece of art, and there it is on the wall. That's the piece of art I saw at the museum today.
How do you
It's
compare?
not the identical one, just the copy.
How do you compare the the print you have, with the original? What stood out in your
This isn't
OMG
a
moment?
print. This isn't a print. This is an oil painting. It's a copy of the original.
Is it like do you have a forgery there or an authorized copy?
No,
or?
I'm sure it's a copy. I'm sure it's an intentional copy. It's not meant to be a forgery. It's meant to be a study of the art.
see, Dan, what artists sometimes do is
Like-
they will go to art museums with their easels, and they will paint copies of the work that's sitting on the wall. This is how art students learn what to do.
Like Pharrell,
Who's that?
the guy who got successfully sued by Marvin Gaye's estate. Him and
Will
whoever
Ferrell.
got
Not like that.
the guy who got twerked by Miley Cyrus on the
Can we
show.
wrap this show up already?
But anyway, just a quick question: were there significant things in your oh my god moment at the museum when you saw the actual painting, compared to the reproduction you have?
Well, I actually wasn't aware that this was a copy, so I was stunned that I walked up the staircase and saw the same painting on the wall. I knew that it was likely that the Met had the original, and that mine was most likely a copy.
I'm guessing
But
if
I
we
was
have to
happy
flip a
to know
coin there.
Yeah, I was happy to know that the Met and I have similar taste in art.
Indeed. And okay, so thank you all for watching. We appreciate it. But yeah, it was very exciting to see a person fly for the first. I've flown like 100 times. So I told him, I said this can be more fun for me than you, although he disputes that. But as Alan mentioned, our other program is called Our Android Week. That is every Monday night at 9 Eastern, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, 6 p.m. Pacific. on Google Plus and YouTube Live, where we discuss all things Android. Also, a reminder, tomorrow, every Saturday, after the 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific, CBS News on the Virginia Talk Radio Network, I do a segment on the big story. I'm not sure what we're talking about. I guess we're going to probably hit Ferguson and maybe Hillary email. I don't know. Whatever he makes me talk about. And then this program, Google Plus Week, which is the longest running show on Google Plus. We're going to hang on until we get orcutted. And we love it. And we thank you very much for your comments. And I will do one quick last check here and see if we have any additional words of wisdom. We do. We have words. I'm do a quick scan to see if it's...
if they're wise or not.
It's Black Velvet. Michael Ellis's Guinness also contains fish bladders.
That's it. Black velvet. Thank you.
Speaking of corned beef, those last couple of ingredients on the Spam are pickling salts, by the way. Ah, interesting. Thus the 14-year shelf life. You can buy pasteurized raw eggs. That I did not know.
That is correct.
Interesting. I don't know how they would do that
They,
without...
they don't work in all applications, but they do work in cases. They are effective in cases where you want to use something that has raw egg in it, such as mayonnaise, or some cocktails use egg whites.
A lot
for
of
foaming.
restaurants will use ladleable egg product. It's real eggs, but you can use a ladle just to speed up omelets to do a folded egg. But anyway, thank you all for watching. We appreciate it. Until next time, have an awesome, epic Google Plus week. See you.